we've heard Pat Riley come out and say he is not going to get top prospects or even a top player for him, but you can get a secondary player. How about the Timberwolves reaching out to him? How about trading Julius Randle over there? That would make a lot of sense if you would ask me. Julius Randle would be the number one option, which he absolutely loves. He loved it over there in New York until Jalen Brunson went over there, and he didn't really accept it until OG Anunoby was traded at the trade deadline last year. That was the reason why he accepted it. After he realized that OG was coming, he was never going to be the secondary player. He was going to be the third. And that he was really, in my book, a secondary player. But right now, Jimmy Buckets, he is a number one guy. And the Timberwolves aren't playing very well. Anthony Edwards, after talking to Michael Jordan, has, everybody says that he has changed. He's become a better player. I disagree. I don't think it had anything to do with him speaking to Michael Jordan. But Jimmy Buckets right now is sitting, and he's really sitting and waiting to be traded because he's never going to play another minute with the Miami Heat. And again, the reason behind it is because of his mouth and because of what he does on and off the court. And I will say this, I would take a Jimmy Butler any day from any of those players that we have spoken about, when it comes to Brandon Ingram, when it comes to Julius Randle, or any of these guys. Because what this guy does is he actually shows up in the playoffs. That's what these teams are looking at. If the Golden State Warriors want to make them run and they want to sneak into the playoffs and make noise, you make a move for Jimmy Butler, you put him with Steph Curry in the playoffs, two guys that can play in the playoffs. They're as dangerous as the Nuggets are right now with Russell Westbrook playing at a high pace and at a high range. So, I mean, everybody thinks that Russell Westbrook has completely become the player that he was when he was a young player with OKC. I just think he's been playing with guys that are just so much better than he is, and it makes him better. When you play with naturally gifted players, they make you look better on the court. Jimmy Butler has played with nobody. Who's Jimmy Butler played with right now since he's gone to the Miami Heat? Bam Adebayo is the closest star he's played with over there.
And he's had a bad year.
Yeah. He's never played with a superstar. The last time he did was with the Timberwolves, and Edwards was young, still wet behind the ears, and Karl Anthony Towns and him couldn't get along. So it never worked. Everywhere he's gone, I'll tell you this, he did play with Derrick Rose pretty damn good. I mean, him and Derrick Rose played very well in Chicago, and that's why Chicago was one of the best Eastern teams for 4 or 5 years when he was over there. But he was young. Now, an older, more mature Jimmy Buckets, I don't know about mature, but older Jimmy Buckets playing for the Golden State Warriors, wow, that would be some team. Jimmy Buckets has been doing it for like 13 years at the top of his game. I remember when he was drafted, and his guy had no shot. He had no offensive ability. He was drafted as a late first round draft pick to be used really predominantly for the defensive skills that he had. And look what he's turned into. I mean, he has become as good a two-way player as we've seen in the NBA in a very, very long time. If you were to look at right now, if you look at Jimmy Butler, who does he remind you of in the 90s?
Scottie Pippen?
That's right. That good guess over there, Fish. I love you. That's right. Scottie Pippen. The way he plays defense, can guard multiple positions. He's a stopper. You could put him on anybody. And he's a good two-way player. He can shoot. He shoots better than Scottie. Scottie never shot as good as Jimmy Butler. But Scottie didn't have to. It was a different game in the 90s. Just like Michael Jordan. Everybody says, Michael Jordan's a career 30% or 28% three-point shooter. He didn't have to shoot the three.
Not only that, they didn't really have other guys to shoot the three.
I wouldn't say Gary Payton. Gary Payton was a great two-way player. He was the glove. Right. But Gary Payton didn't really transform into the superstar until his first fight. You know who Gary Payton reminds me of? He was a late bloomer. Gary Payton really exploded like the last 6 years of his career. He was a good player, but he really never transformed. Because who was the best player on that team when Gary Payton was there? Sean Kemp. And when Sean Kemp
and his 19 kids.
Yeah, as soon as he left, and it wasn't Dikembe Mutombo, but as soon as he left, it opened up opportunity. Dikembe Mutombo was on Denver. That's right. Yeah. So when I watched them play, it was really Gary Payton really exploded. Like 5 years into his career. And that he reminds me, Steph Curry took 4 years because Steph Curry couldn't stay healthy in his early career.
Right.
If Jimmy Butler didn't get hurt early in that Boston Celtics, that series, I think Miami probably wins that game. I mean, that series. I think Miami has had great competition over there against the Boston Celtics, and they've always played well against the Boston Celtics. Mm-hmm. If any East team is going to enjoy this, it's the Knicks, it's the Boston Celtics, the teams that don't play well against the Heat when Jimmy Butler is healthy. Mm-hmm. I think him going to the West makes a lot of sense for the Eastern Conference. You do not want to see Jimmy Butler playing for Miami, or how about being traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Oh,
could you imagine that? Could you imagine Cleveland landing Jimmy Buckets? That wouldn't be fair. I don't see the Rockets trading away any of their young players. They're playing too good of basketball right now. And I think the Rockets will land a veteran player, Speedy, but not Jimmy Butler. You don't want to bring a guy on a young team that's playing good finesse basketball and bringing a personality like that can ruin everything there. So I cannot see that. That's a good swing. Pat Riley's lying about this.
100%, 100%.
He's going to want top dollar for him. I think this is just telling him, trying to give him a call and say, listen, I'm talking. You don't have to give me as much. And then he's going to come in. Okay, you don't have to give me as much. I won't take the first round picks. I'll take your 2 secondary players that you want to trade me. That's what he's going to say, because you're not just going to give Jimmy Butler away.